Across the pond.
Welcome back, guys, to Across the Pond. Today we are joined by the lovely Dr. Zsych. Hi, Dr. Zsych.
Hello. How are you?
It's great. Fantastic. It's great to have you on the show today.
I am ecstatic to be with you. Being here, but
Fantastic.
yeah.
Dr. Zsych is here to talk about some experiences he's had that are otherworldly. Abduction? Maybe. We're going to find out. It's over to you, Dr. Zsych. So just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a horror host, a purveyor of all things macabre and mysterious. I originally come from clown folk. It may not be apparent in looking at me because I've rejected most of that. But I was raised with a clown family. My great grandfathers, my grandfather, especially my grandfathers and my grandfather's uncles, they really were, I mean, well beloved and well embroiled in. They were just a full clown, and it was just too bright and cheery, and I was just drawn to the dark and the shadow places. And so it's like, as you do, you kind of grow away from things. Sometimes I did with that, and I rejected it, pulled off the clown nose and chucked that, and I said, this is the real me, and this is where I'm going to go. I had a nurturing uncle with some experience with things, and he helped guide me down this path. Giving me his personal straitjacket, which is when you're kind of going it alone, it's nice to have built-in hugs. If I'm ever feeling a little lonely or a little unwanted, I can just wrap myself up and pull them tight and go, yes, it's all me and I'm all in. So
I love it. I love it. So do you think that because of this, let's go back to now your childhood. So the first experience that you had, I know we were discussing before we got on, but I'd love for you to tell the audience about it.
As a young man, barely 11-ish. I love to go. We always were very outdoorsy people, and I love to go out doing all sorts of like wilderness things. And we went camping up north. I actually went with my mother and my sister to you've heard of the Girl Scouts. And there was a bunch of boys that were, the sons of other fellow leaders like my mother. And so they were like, well, we invite you to go up there and the boys can get their own camp, which was great. So we're all doing all kinds of boy stuff, all that icky sort of finding grubs or, learning how to play cards, all the ins and outs of boyhood. But I as expected, it's like, I was always problematic with sleep. I've always suffered from insomnia, fairly regularly. I'm well versed in all the culture of being the night owl. I was very, it's like there's always be that moment of the night where the very final thing would end on the TV, and it would be lights out, and then you're just staring at your ceiling. So going out to the wilderness, there's nothing. And once everyone else decides to go to sleep, you're just there in your bunk. And I thought, oh, I'm going to have this terrible night of staring at the top of the tent, just listening to the different, wolves or rustles in the trees and wondering, what's that? Or what's that? But no, I was out. Just like X's for eyes, gone. Like in an instant. I woke up the next day feeling more exhausted than when I'd gone to sleep. I was all achy, and it felt like I'd been running around all night. And I'm like, I don't remember a thing. It was like once it was lights out, it was like then next morning, it was all a blur. In an instant, I went to sleep, and in an instant, I was awake. So we did that day's activities. We had one more night. Same thing. I'm like, well, I was a little bit busier, so I don't expect to I'm like, we're too ramped up, and I'm like, I'm still not feeling like I'm gonna sleep. So this will be the night that I'll be up, stuck by myself, watching everyone snore and drool and what have you. But no, out like a light, just popped off. I was gone. Next morning, again, it's like, oh, I'm so tired. I'm so exhausted. I feel like I was fighting all night or wrestling with something. It's like just the all over, like not what I expected. I'm like, I'm sleeping the best I've ever slept. Why don't I feel like rejuvenated? So we come, we pack all up. We drive back down to the valley, and I don't think too much about it
Hmm.
until the preceding nights. Once home, I find myself thrown into this dreamscape, this nightmare. Oh, cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Mm. Anyway, of recurring nightmares, night after night.
Hmm.
The same thing. I didn't understand where this came from because all of a sudden I'm back home. I should be safe. I'm in my own house, but I get this foreboding feeling that something is approaching, something is coming, something is watching. And I go to the back windows and I
Okay.
look out and I could see there's a forest. When we didn't have a forest behind our house, it was a very urban setting. There was like some trees and whatnot, but no pine forest like had been up at camp. And I
Hmm.
look out and I could see weaving their way through in single file these short men, stocky troll-like, with these big broad faces, bluish with hoods and these big black eyes. And they're just coming right. And I know, and I'm like, I start warning everyone in the house. You got to get up. Everyone get up. Man the windows, man the doors. Everyone has to try and keep these things out. They're going to try and get in. They're going to try and get in. I know they want in. I don't know what they're going to do,
Hmm.
but once
So,
I
Dr.
know
Zsych,
it
I
was
just wanted
gone.
to say, is this, apologies, lovely, is this why you're in some type of, you think you dreaming, or this was actually happening? What
It,
was the
at the
situation here? You
time,
thought you were
this is one of
dreaming.
the few dreams where I felt like it was actually happening. I was,
Right.
I came
Yes.
from a
Okay.
family
I just,
of like really elaborate dreaming. And my mother was famous for
hmm.
her night terrors. She would just wake up screaming. She couldn't ever remember what it was going on, but she would just wake up screaming. So I know what a
Okay.
regular nightmare looks like in my head, and some of them I
Hmm.
rather enjoy. But usually I can break out of them. I got very good at just like I got very good at managing my sleep. I'm very good at if I've decided I don't like a dream, I'm out. I will wake right up and I'll go give myself a chance.
Yeah.
Go if you're gonna do that though, if you're one of these sort of commanding your dream well, if you can command your dream well and you can wake up from a dream that you don't like, make sure you give yourself at
Yes.
least 5 minutes before returning to bed. You gotta get up, get a drink, go do something, go take in some night air or whatever. But wait a minute, because if you go right back, it'll just suck you right into it.
Hmm.
It'll just your subconscious is waiting to start that record right back up to play that same tape, and it'll just draw you back in. So give it a little time. But
Yes.
with these dreams, even if I broke out of it, I'd be right back into it. It's no matter how long, it would just be
Hmm.
right back, and then the next night it'd be back. And I'd never had recurring nightmares before. Every night, the same thing, over and over. The same creatures, always coming, starting from in the forest, weaving through, getting in, looking into the windows. You're like peering through. Oh,
How long was this going on for? So this say that set of dreams that you're saying you were
those
having,
dreams like
what
that
was like the
went
time
on.
span? Like for years or?
It went on for years.
Hmm.
It did diminish over time. The regular, the amount that I would have, say, before at the initial start, it was every night, and then after a couple months, it started to diminish to like maybe, 3 or 4 times a week, and then lower down, then it was only once a week. So the longer it went on, but I would still have the dreams, and I'd always find myself in the
Okay.
same position. Sometimes the creatures were different. That was another thing that slowly changed over time. It's like, for some reason, my subconscious wanted to change them out and make it something else, which I was happy with. It was like
Hmm.
I was really, really sick of seeing these little blue bastards um, coming coming for me and my family.
And it,
And
traditionally, people are hearing greys as opposed to you're saying blue. So
yeah,
this is
yeah. Well,
actually,
that was
it's good because it's kind of,
well,
you
that's the
know,
thing that was the trick. I never thought of them as aliens. I thought of them as like woodland, fantasy creatures, little
mini humans.
trolls, or some sort of really big, ugly gnome. Like just some very. I mean, the color blue too. I mean, I was like, I've never seen anything like that
Yeah,
before.
it's such
And I
bizarre.
didn't acquire. I
I
never.
think blue.
Yeah,
Oh,
blue. I
oh,
mean, although
sorry.
blue
I
is one
think
of
blue. I think Syrian. If anyone studies these entities, I'm sure the blues are Syrians. I may be wrong.
yeah. So that's what I always thought. I never really equated it with the alien phenomenon. I knew that, the grays, the big almond black eyes, and
Hmm.
the big, big heads with the little skinny bodies. But these were stocky,
The ones
short,
that are taking you.
big headed. They were the
Hmm.
exact opposite of those things. So I never equated it to
Hmm.
until I saw this movie Communion. That's what I'd seen the book.
Right now, when was this? Hold on. For our listeners, what's the time frame here?
Time
So
frame
this
is
all
probably
started when
it's
you were
about 20
approximately
years.
11,
Yeah, from 11 to about 21 when I saw the Communion, about 10 years.
21.
Yeah,
Right. So 21
so I'm
years. Okay.
21 years old, and
Oh.
I'd seen the book
Hmm.
out. I'd seen it around. I was very interested in. But I would look at it and I'm
Hmm.
like, I'm just, I don't know. I kept putting it off. But then the movie came out, and
Yes.
I like Christopher Walken. I'm a fan, and so I'm like, well, if it's Christopher Walken in it, he did it. I mean, it can't be bad. So I'm watching it for his sake. I'm like, oh, we got to get that Walken going, right? And I'm watching it, and everything's going. Oh, here comes the little weirdo Grays, and they take him out of the cabin, and all of a sudden they take him in this room, and then there's those blue sons of guns, the exact same ones that I'd seen in my nightmares for over a decade. I'd seen the exact same in the movie, the same
In the
stocky,
movie.
hooded, black-eyed, blue, monstrosities. These trollmen are there with the Greys. And at this point, after
Oh.
Hitchcock moment, I'm like, I'm in pure
Hmm.
panic mode, and I'm like, I can't catch my breath. I'm like vertigo. Whoa, I'm like, everything is like, I'm absolutely having an out of body experience with this. I'm like, my chest is tight,
Yes.
my eyes are ready to jet out of my skull, and I'm like, I'm up and I'm out. I'm like, out the door I go,
Hmm.
and I'm like, I'm done with this. And they're like, no, please come back, come on. I'm like, no. I'm like, you watch it. I don't want any part of it. I'm like, so I go out and I try to catch my breath, and I go outside, and I'm like, I need to be away from that, because it's I don't know what it's dwelling up something terrible within me, and it's taking me back to all those nightmares. I'm like, those are the same little creatures, the same manifestation. I'm like, why is my dream suddenly in this movie? Why is my nightmares chasing me now into my, this is like my real life. How did that, where's that crossover? Where's that, where's that connection at? And so finally, I'm like, they're like, well, please come in. We'll turn the lights back on, make it brighter, whatever, to make you comfortable. I watched the movie, but I'm like, I'm like panicked every time they're on screen. I am like grabbing onto the armchairs. I'm riveted. I'm like so distressed. So I figured, well, there's only one thing to do. Knowledge is power, and I always believe in that. You need to
Yes.
empower yourself. So
I agree
if you
with that.
don't understand, if you don't understand a thing, you need to learn about it and educate yourself, and then maybe you'll have a better understanding. It's like the old adage: if something frightens you, give it a name. If it's then you can call it by a name. It's like, so this was one of them. I'm like, I'm going to find out what's going on here. So I start to research, and sure enough, it turns out that these blue, stocky, husky, troll-like creatures that I saw are in partnership with the Greys. And it's apparently always been that way as far as most of the UFO community has been concerned. All the UFO like researchers and all this.
Okay, so Dr. Zsych, where did you find that information out? Was that information in the movie, or you mean you actually researched and found that information out, that that's what people are saying?
I started looking. I looked into things like MUFON, the MUFON network, which is a big UFO society here. Looking into that, We have,
Mm-hmm.
I had some friends who put me onto some different reading materials. I did actually look into the
Yes.
book itself. I read went through the communion, specifically about those sorts of
Mm-hmm.
pages, and found out that
Mm-hmm.
researchers had regularly found they kept, the Greys, the Greys they're internationally known. Everybody, like, when you say, oh, a little
Yeah.
man, a little gray man, they're like, oh, those are the guys they think of. But they kept the blue guys really quiet. So when they'd have someone that come to them and say, oh, I've been abducted, they took me away up into the sky, they could go, well, okay,
Mm-hmm.
let's sit you down, let's find out what you saw and what happened. And in most cases, if it was
Mm-hmm.
just the Greys, they're like, well, we'll keep you on, we'll keep you in note, we'll keep you in our book, we'll keep you in there. But they weren't excited until they find someone that had seen the blues, because the blues were the
Mm-hmm.
one inescapable fact. That was the true distinction in many of abduction scenarios that separated, your common, like person who just wanted to be abducted versus someone who probably had some interaction with the creatures themselves.
Yes. So, Dr. Zsych, can you remember the name of the alien entity when you researched that they were calling them? Because there are different types of entities. There's like the Syrians, Pleiadians, there's Andromedans,
I think
for
it was something like the
example. Can you
Syrian.
remember the name?
I think it was something like the
So
Syrian.
it was it Syrians?
Yeah, I think it was the
Yeah, because
Syrian.
that's
Yeah,
what I'm sure. I'm literally, while we're talking, I'm checking this now.
yeah. Really.
I'm sure it
I
is
mean,
Syrians.
you can't
So through your
you
research,
can't misplace them. I mean, I know we have, you have the humanoids, which are very, like, Swiss-loving people. They're like blonde-haired, blue-eyed. They look like
hmm
they come straight from Scandinavia. You have the mantids
hmm
or the mantis types. So there are the different sorts of aliens out there, but these,
yeah, apparently there's so many different aliens that are actually
it's a big
blue,
universe out there.
but is it? But there's loads. There is loads, but the common one is Syrians. So
Serious,
yeah,
yes.
are distinct. Yeah, distinct. Very very blue
And they're
aliens. So
very
quite
unfriendly
strong.
looking. Very unfriendly looking. I tell you, they don't give you the warm fuzzies. I mean, I thought, I mean, as
hmm
creepy as the Greys are, these guys, this is straight out of something like Phantasm. I don't know if you've ever seen
hmm
that movie. It's a Phantasm, and they have these little.
That's a classic.
That is
Yeah.
actually a classic. But I hadn't seen that. I had
Yeah.
not seen that as a
Mhm.
kid. I didn't see that
Really?
way later until, after communion and
Oh,
after
I
that.
did.
I was surprised. I was
hmm
probably closer to another 10 years down the road before I actually got a chance to see Phantasm. It just wasn't really available for a long time. Yeah, you get busy with doing
hmm
things, running here, running there. I didn't want. I missed all of Friends. To give you, remember the
hmm
big Friends phenomenon? Everybody's all obsessed with it. I never watched this. I never watched,
We're,
never seen it back then. It was all
we're,
lost for me. But
we're
yeah,
starting to give our age away here.
I know. But
So once you found out through your research that it was them, so this is now when you're 21 years old.
yes,
Yes.
yes, yeah. That
Okay, so you're 21, you found this out. What then proceeded to happen in the years coming? Have you seen them since?
I'll tell you, I've suffered, like, for almost as long as I can remember, with sleep paralysis, which is you're frozen.
hmm
You can be completely alert and completely awake. You're
hmm
not dreaming anymore. Your eyes can be open. You can look around, but you can't turn your head. You can't move anything. And
hmm
I've had this happen regularly, and especially in adulthood. Once, finding out that it's like I started to put, like, my senses to like the understanding that I wasn't alone any time that happened, that I could feel the presences, around the room, that, like loitering just out of grasp, just out of my actual, like, line of sight. Like, if I'm looking up, I can't
hmm
quite look down, and I know I could feel things that are at the end of the bed. They're going around, and then it would feel
hmm
like at some points. you would feel like you can't grasp onto the consciousness any longer, and you just slip away. And I would be
Okay.
that was the parts I would like. Ooh, I was always happy when I'd wake up, but when I realized I couldn't move, I knew what was coming next. And next was coming the second wave, which is where you would just like suddenly lose that consciousness again. It would just be
Stuck.
drained from you, and I had no idea
That's
how that.
quite scary.
Very frightening. It's very frightening. It's like you don't
Yeah.
know what's
No, of
going
course.
on, and then to wake up again, then all of a
Hmm.
sudden you can move. And it's like at this point, I'm beyond disturbed. I'm certain there was something around here. I would go checking throughout the entire house, and inevitably I would find. I mean, I would find doors unlocked that I knew I'd locked the night before, windows either unlocked or like slightly left open that I knew. I mean, because I'm methodical, OCD, whatever you want to call it, about making sure everything's secure every night. And
Same.
yeah,
Yeah.
we've got that going between us. I mean, and I think that's something that becomes kind of indicative of people that have felt like a need to, like they felt like some sort of invaded space. They feel like they're not even safe in their own homes, and that's a special kind of fear when you can't even be, like at night. And I'm okay. I'm very acute at being alerted to things that are around my home. When there are things like
Okay.
around, like whether it's animals or people, I've woken up out of a dead sleep and I've caught people like trying to get into my car. I mean, yes, I'm like sixth sense,
Really?
like spider sense tingling. Get your butt up.
Yeah.
Get to the door.
Oh, it
Oh
exists.
yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
Hmm.
I unfortunately that one time I was very lucky that the guys, even though they had stolen a bang bang from a neighbor, they didn't like. They just like when I caught them getting into my car trying to bust into it, they just ran off and they just drove away as fast as they could. But yeah, and I've done that regularly. I've always caught people trying to prowl my premises. And
I'm assuming you.
yeah.
Sorry, because it's slight delay. I'm assuming you didn't know that they had obviously
I had
taken the
no
bang
idea.
bang.
I had no
Yeah,
idea.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
They just
Okay,
robbed
okay.
the neighbor across the street.
That's lucky you. Yeah, yeah.
I found out
Mhm.
after the fact that had happened. That that like he had left my neighbor across from me had left it in his truck,
Mhm.
and so
Yes.
they went across to him first, and then they jogged across to me. So they were like trying to go down the neighborhood, going back and robbing back and forth, taking whatever they could out of people's cars. But as it happens, I scared them off and saved everyone else from having any sort of burglaries or anything that night. But I did
Yeah.
that. And I've always been. But with this, I have whatever this is. I've been powerless against it. It's like I find myself unable to fight back and to break free of whatever this hold is that they get over us. And I don't know if it's some sort of electromagnetism. I know I've watched and researched about weird things that can be done with the brain, and I'm very mindful about where a bed is located based on where your
Well,
power is in your home because it
okay.
can cause problems. So I'm like, there's
Okay.
something.
I thought for. Oh, apologies,
Yeah.
doctor. I thought for a moment there you were talking about electrokinesis.
Oh yes, that too. I mean, it feels like a foregone conclusion that those times that I've definitely felt the presence, there feels like there's a mental connection. Like I know they see me,
Yeah.
that they're watching me, and they know that I'm seeing them, and that's why they're definitely they know their limits as far as like keeping I think there's a point at which they need to keep you in a certain state, and if you're breaking
Yeah.
out of it, which I think that's what I've been able to do, is I'm able to break out a little bit, and so then if I'm able to see it, I think it is shatter it. It feels like there's a membrane, a very thin membrane that separates their control over me regaining mine. And if I'm able to see them, then it busts through to my own reality, and I'm able to come back into myself and take over. Yeah. So,
But here's the thing. So with that experience now, in like as you've got older, and you've been having sleep paralysis,
right.
and you can obviously feel the energies, and I totally believe that
Yes.
100%. I'm on board with that. But what I'm saying is, you haven't seen the blue aliens because you haven't mentioned them now. You haven't seen the blue aliens since, say, adulthood. So do you think maybe it might be another species of aliens? Say, for example, doing the sleep paralysis, or another otherworldly entity? Yeah.
Absolutely. That was going to be my next point. Is that even though
Sorry.
no.
Sorry. As I'm like, we have not had this
we've
discussion, by the way, guys.
We've got a little bit of telepathy going on cars. You know where this is going.
Exactly.
But I was going to point out that the feeling I've had it's been a different entity, a different creature, a different species that's been propagating into my home.
Yes.
That those were definitely up there, and that was that experience. But what's been here, I don't know. It's either like some part of the grays or gray light.
Yes.
They're very small. They're maybe 3 to 4 feet in height, somewhere in there. I'm thinking 3.5 seems to be like it seems like that's about the position. And I've definitely had those moments where when I've gotten up and I feel like the house, like they didn't quite make it out. There's been a couple of times where I feel like I'm frozen even walking through my own home. And I'm like I want to turn. I feel like I want to turn behind me, and it's like, no, don't, not yet.
Yeah.
Don't. And then
go with your intuition, you know. That's what I say.
I fully expect to see it. I do. I fully expect to see something standing there, and I've gotten violent.
Yeah.
I've actually gotten violent in my sleep from things. You wake up in the middle of the night and you see something staring at you in the room, you know, and you have that point of that your sanctity has been violated, and at some point you stop being that, like, I'm not going to be the victim anymore. I'm not going to just stand back and passively like go through this. I'm like, I'm getting you. I'm gonna grab you. You're not getting away this time. And I've lurched. I've lurched out and I'm going to go, and then there's nothing there.
Well, I think, sorry, this is only my opinion, of course, guys, but I think just even with the sleep paralysis and stuff, you being able to break away from that, is a sign of obviously energetic strength, and on top of that, like when you say that you're feeling like you're constantly surrounded by things,
right?
Do you think everything's trying to harm you? Do you think everything's trying to harm you, or do you maybe feel like you've been instilled in a state of fear because of what you've experienced with, say, the sleep paralysis? Because even in your youth, they weren't touching you, harming you. Now you're older. Now you're thinking that you're being put into this state. So do you think it's a state of fear causing maybe you to think that everything's going to harm you? Maybe you've got an ability of sorts, or guys, I'm just exploring here.
No, there's definitely something to be said for the distinction between that sort of primal fear. I don't know what those are. I don't understand what's happening, and I'm reacting very badly to it because I'm confused and I'm startled, and I'm being caught at a very vulnerable time. I'm completely defenseless. I'm sleeping. I'm like, you're very raw in that moment. I mean, people, you see movies where, like people are sleeping and someone all of a sudden just in their room. You see someone standing over someone who's completely asleep. It's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying.
That plays in my head. Yeah, that plays in my head more than anything.
And if you
forget the entities and stuff,
if you have,
but see, like not locking up and a human being come in and possibly hurt you. Yes, I'm. That's constantly, so I can completely relate to that.
So I think it's that vulnerability that lends itself to the fear. Mentally, like if I'm using my higher intellect, I don't think they intend harm. It feels more.
Well, not all of them, maybe.
We're trying not to freak you out. We don't want you to be scared. But it's more like when you're held, it feels more like we're stopping you from harming yourself. sort of mentality. We don't want you to do something that might harm you or inadvertently harm us. If that makes any sense. It feels like they're just kind of like we're trying to keep a safe space for everyone, sort of thing. It feels like that. It's like if I could.
I think just sorry, I'm not trying
No,
to cut
no,
across you,
please go ahead.
Doctor. I think just from like my personal opinion on this and what you're describing, it would make sense to me that it would be multiple different entities, of course, and different species that are coming to you, say, from the
their own
ethers,
little agendas.
or are around you, and are maybe
Yes.
even here, and some of them you can't see. So if you ever hear the term beyond the veil, where people say beyond the veil, what it really actually is when you've got a sight to see things that other people can't, because you're tapped into something
Right.
that other people are not, from my understanding.
That would
So
explain,
yeah, maybe
that would explain a few things, because I've definitely seen things that it seems like
just
no one
my
else
opinion. Yeah,
more, that no one else seems. I don't know if we're both, like us as well as others have been like either we're sensitive in a way, or because
yeah,
we've had experiences, it's opened our minds to a bigger world,
yeah.
to other like ways of looking at it, to seeing things.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're not blinding ourselves as much anymore. We know there's things
Well,
out there, and I think a lot
I
of
think
people,
even
they
just
walk through with the
mm,
blinders on. They're constantly, I don't want to do this, and you and I, they've ripped them off.
I don't think it's their fault though. I don't think it's their fault at all. So if you're saying like people are walking with blinders, I think because they're kind of maybe, if just basing this theoretically, guys,
Yeah,
conditioned as
yeah,
such. They're put through school. They're put through, told what to do. Told to say yes, go to a 9 to 5, constantly on, systems,
yeah.
social media. That's
The
draining in
demands of the real
itself.
world. Yeah,
That's stopping,
that
closing you. You've got no bloody mental energy to do anything at all.
yes.
So how would you expect to be seeing anything or be open to these things if your own energy is drained already just from the life
You're just,
on
yeah,
the
just
3D on
beaten
planet
down by
Earth?
the world.
Yeah.
Yes,
But I
exactly.
think people are seeming to be kind of waking up, is what I would call it, since COVID.
Yeah, that's the
Since
wicked. Yes,
lockdown.
I definitely have been very curious about that sort of phenomenon too. All things like pineal gland and like a higher mind state and a higher states of awareness, and
Hmm.
and that would I'm
Mm-hmm.
definitely, I think that's all plays a part into it, and that could be,
Mm-hmm.
the reason why some of us are maybe more interesting or more likely to have had these experiences, is because on a fundamental, like, foundation, we're more open to it in the first place. They know that we will respond best to it, and even though we're feeling like we're not, I mean, if you've ever gone in for like, like you show up for school and it's pop quiz day, like, oh God, I didn't study, and it's like slamming, you're like, okay, time's a ticking, get on. And then you do really great. You didn't
Mm-hmm.
think you're going to do great, but the teacher's like, yeah, awesome. But I think it's sort of the same thing. I think there are those of us that we don't understand our own potentials, but others do. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe this is a case of where they are able to see our abilities, as opposed to someone, in the next house over. Or, maybe, like only a few people in any given neighborhood are someone that they feel like they can
Mm-hmm.
work with. Or it could be down to, the genetics of the situation. They're looking for certain types of genomes. I know in my family, there definitely seems to be a history on both sides of the family tree going back. Definitely some
Mm-hmm.
very weird, sort of, unusual things. My uncle had experiences and seeing things. My father, uh, my other uncle, I mean, have definitely, they talked about things that they're not the kind of type that were like, they were never embroiled in that sort of thing. And, they're like,
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden he's like, "Hey, what do you think of that whole alien thing?" I'm like, "You trying to talk aliens with me?" I'm like, "Let's go." And then I
Mm-hmm.
find out this is something that they like of the one thing, they're like most of the time they're into cowboys and old westerns and stuff, but then all of a sudden they're very much into like the alien phenomenon, and they're like, "What are you?" They're like,
The
"Look in my
absolute
phone."
like diversity here
I'm
going
like,
on.
"It's
It's
like,
just like, oh,
oh,
one
like
minute we're cowboys and aliens.
exactly." That's what I was like, exactly. I'm like, we're like no one expected that crossover, but here we are. It's like. And that was the same sort of thing. I'm like, like my, my grandfather, he's all like horses and regular stuff. And yet he'd be like, I've seen some weird stuff at night. And I'm talking back in the days when there weren't planes flying everywhere, you know. Um,
Yeah.
and that takes me to some of the weird things that I've seen in the sky. Which is,
Mm-hmm.
I think another subject altogether. I mean, you've got those, one's personal experiences, then you have those experiences where it's maybe at a distance. Like I've had two unusual sightings. First was on a trip going to San Diego, California, and I'm
Okay.
taking the interstate out there. You go through it's part dunes and part mountain ranges in between the border between Arizona and California, and it's a really lovely,
Mm-hmm.
beautiful sort of area. It's very desolate, very very sparse, no vegetation really. It's
Mm-hmm.
because there's the high winds, lots and lots of high wind, and as we're driving, I see this thing like just perched above a mountain range. And it's not too far off from the highway. I mean, it's definitely like you couldn't necessarily. There's no way to really necessarily drive back into the mountain range to get it, but it was easy to see from a distance, and it was just this
Mm-hmm.
cylinder suspended, fairly like not like so high above the mountain range that you didn't have a scale. I mean, you definitely could kind of compare the two. It wasn't way up in the stratosphere. It was, maybe more like hundreds of feet or or hundreds of yards above the mountain range, just
What?
pitched at this angle, this
Sorry. What?
giant cylinder. And at a distance, I thought at first it was some sort of windsock. As we got closer, or some sort of like balloon or something that was just like like being used for advertising. But as we got closer and closer, I could see it had very defined, sharp edges, the end caps and the cylinder. It was metallic in color and reflection. I'm like, there's a giant.
How big do you think it was?
I honestly, if I was to give it, if it was anything, it could have been a quarter to a half a mile in length, from a quarter to a
Okay.
half a mile. I mean,
What?
at the distance, I mean, it could have been bigger. I don't think it probably
Mm-hmm.
would have been much if it was, but I mean, still at that size, it's pretty substantial. Maybe, if I'd known like the mountains a little bit better, I mean, it could have been a three quarters to a mile. It's hard to say.
So
A cylinder
really?
just looks like a cylinder no matter where it's at. So,
Oh, okay. You know what? I was searching up. I was going to say, what year was that?
this was hmm. I know there's a video. I came across this kind of
Approx.
video from Texas. And I had
Mm-hmm.
that saved for a long time because I could show it to people. And the man had the exact same
Mm-hmm.
object sitting straight away
Mm-hmm.
right above his ranch in Texas. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
well, we're only
Mm-hmm.
one state away from Texas, so this thing wouldn't have had to travel very far. But it was the exact same
Right.
thing, and he was about of the same mindset, about maybe about a half a mile in length or so. The cylinder just sat
Mm-hmm.
at
Mm-hmm.
roughly like a 30-degree angle or so. It wasn't flat, which was odd. Yeah, it wasn't standing straight up. It wasn't. It was at this weird angle. Um, which
Mm-hmm.
I didn't. I was like, I didn't understand that. I mean, you're trying to wrap it. Why would you? But I mean, if gravity's not an issue for you, or if you're using magnetism,
Mm-hmm.
there's if you get superconducting magnets, there's the very interesting phenomenon where you end up with the superconducting magnets that will lock in
Okay.
exactly at that rotation, and it could have well been
Mm-hmm.
slow turning on its axis as well. I wasn't close enough to be able to make out that kind of a detail, but it was. I mean, it was
Yeah.
damn peculiar. I mean, there's no way I could explain it. I've never seen anything in anything about it, any The closest I had to that later was that video where the guy had the exact same. I'm like, that's exactly what I saw, right over this
What
guy's
you've
ranch.
seen, yeah.
Yeah, it's the exact same thing.
Okay.
And Texas is famous for another like alien thing. They had this alien sort of crash there back in the Wild
Mm-hmm.
West days. That it was like around the time that they still were saying blimp. You know, like the first blimps were flying, and they didn't know what a blimp looked like. So
Yeah.
they'd heard about them, and they thought that well they had this
Mm-hmm.
like metal blimp crash. And there's this whole like
Mm-hmm.
yeah that's a whole other thing you could get into, like the whole history of the body. They actually had this weird man. They didn't know how to describe him. This unusual creature that they got from this craft. The pieces that were collected were thrown down a well. They eventually buried the man, but then the body went missing. It gets yes. Like at some point, everything. The marker,
That
yes.
that
It,
that that's
oh,
another rabbit hole to go down.
another, yeah, it's a whole
Maybe
another.
a part two.
Exactly.
For real.
The other one that
Mm.
I've seen was a sphere, was just a
Mm-hmm.
flying sphere. I went out one early morning just to, just as I was waking up, just to get those early morning, sun rays and just appreciate the sky and the nice crisp morning air. And I see what's coming
Yeah.
from about the direction of the former Air Force base, now a regular airport. A glint,
Mm-hmm.
a little shining in the sky. I'm like, well, it's I'm thinking Mylar balloon, probably somewhere around it, but it was like it was stable. It kept tracking right towards me. It was on a
Mm-hmm.
diagonal path from the direction of that airport towards me, and I could see it was getting slowly bigger, and it was doing a fairly good clip. It wasn't
Yeah.
going crazy fast by any means, but it definitely was getting bigger and bigger. And I keep waiting for it to rise and fall as the balloons would do, but it just stayed locked in that same path. And I'm like, well, this is
Mm-hmm.
this is damn odd. The balloon. I'm like, what an amazing wind that like backwind it's caught that's just pushing it straight forward, right towards me. And so I'm watching it, and I'm like, okay, well, as it gets closer, I'm gonna see, happy birthday. I'm gonna see, congratulations, something printed on this thing. As it gets closer and closer, it's getting bigger and bigger. I'm like, that's a perfect ball. That's a perfect sphere, and it's
Yeah.
metal, and it's shiny and it's reflective. It's not exactly mirrored, but as it comes
Mm-hmm.
on and flies straight over my head, I can see the kind of reflecting the ground, but it's completely
Yes.
seamless. No windows, no nothing. It's just this solid metal ball. You know, for what? My mind is like cracked at this point. I have no idea how this could possibly. I'm like, people would say me mad to say, "Oh, a giant metal ball flew over my head, and I watched it go off to the horizon, heading towards the west." So it kind of came from the
Well,
east.
what were you meant to do? Yeah.
Ah, I'm like,
You
I'm
know?
like,
It's not like you could have stopped it.
I'm like,
So
yeah. I mean, it felt like. I mean, it was close enough. I mean, I almost felt like I could sort of see almost my reflection mirrored back at me.
hmm
If it'd been a highly polished mirror, I definitely would have. I mean, it was close enough that I would have seen. Just more. It was like the colors and stuff. It was kind of like that diffused sort of,
yeah.
sort of texture. But like I said,
hmm
it was the most bizarre, beyond phenomenal thing that I've like besides that cylinder, because the cylinder was locked in place. It never moved from that spot. I mean, I was able to witness that for a good hour or so from the start, going around the mountain range and then retreating and continuing on to I could see it in my rearview mirror. I'm like, there it is. Look, it's still there. It's like doesn't seem to care one bit that people are on the highway and seeing it.
hmm
It doesn't care. It doesn't mind it at all. And then there's this. I'm like, okay, so the sphere just flies over, like it's just doing its thing. It's just out for a little morning stroll. It's like, but it's not. It definitely there was. It just seemed to be locked. It wasn't even this one. I could definitely see if there was any sort of turning or any sort of
Yeah.
like any sort of variation in the surface, I would have seen it. I'm very
hmm
keen to like be looking for that sort of a flaw. It would have like immediately popped. I mean, again, OCD, it's like, oh, well, there's a scratch or there's a little dent or something like that. It's like, no, it's a perfect sphere. Just closed
Sphere,
open.
yeah.
And I honestly, I mean, I don't, I'm thinking, my head's still thinking, because I figured you're going to ask like size again, like to give an estimate of how big this thing is.
I was ready.
I can't imagine that it seemed to me, based on how the reflection was, that it was probably any bigger than, 15 to 20 feet wide. Maybe 30 at the max. It was big enough to maybe be manned. I don't know how that would work, but it was definitely, the size of a good sized car or small van, like roughly that, but a lot more interior space since you've got the entire size of that.
Well,
Yeah.
A car itself gets manned by one person and can have several,
yeah. So
passengers.
I don't know how,
yes.
no idea how anyone would possibly get into it. And without any windows, I
The logistics.
some other means of navigation while you're stuck in there. I don't know about you. I have a problem with small closed-in spaces. I need windows. I need a door. Claustrophobia. Yes, thank you. I've got some.
So no lifts then, Dr. Zsych.
Oh yeah, me.
No lifts.
Elevators are not my friends. I do, although glass elevators, I've been on a few of those. Those are better.
Yeah.
I can see around, the great glass wonkavator sort of things. Like I can see out. I feel better, but I still like, like being in airplanes, the little window, knowing I'm trapped. That's a real problem. As flying, it's like, I don't know. It's like, I'd really rather just be asleep, I think, for the entire trip. Just douse me, give me some pills or whatnot, and I'll just take a little nap and wake up and, I'll be there. Congratulations, I've arrived.
As long as we're not taking an elevator, we're good.
Yes. But yeah, I've got, me and elevators
Fantastic.
Oh, I don't know what's going on here. You got darker.
Yeah.
But yes. Oh, I see.
You're
I'm
okay.
running out of time. Hold on.
All right. Okay.
Pause a minute?
Yeah. No, don't. I can't. Guys, Dr. Zsych, we're going to have to cut it here, guys, for today. But Dr. Zsych will be back with a part 2. So please do tune in. If you're listening, wherever you're listening to, please do make sure to subscribe to Across the Pond, guys, on whatever platform you're listening on. And if you're on YouTube, don't forget to hit that notification bell. Dr. Zsych, we'll be back with Dr. Zsych. Thank you so much, darling, for coming on the show. And all my love to you guys. We will speak soon.
See you soon.
Just in relation to some comments that you've made on a Facebook page.
This is a Fox News alert. The Epstein files have been released.
Across the pond.
You're looking at now, sir. Everything that happens now is happening
Very serious.
now.